Hello, good morning, everyone, and happy New Year. I just want to wish you all a great 2026. You can hear it in my voice. I'm still fighting a cold. This is your Director of Operations, Charles McNamara at Guardian Group Services. I am struggling so hard, but really looking forward to today's podcast. Just want to thank you all for joining us at Guardian Group Services. We always try to put out content to help new security officers who are getting into the field and help those who have been in the industry for a while learn more, earn more, and progress through the industry. So I just want to say thank you all for joining. It's our first podcast of this year. Ooh, and we got a good one, folks. Today, we have a new instructor. I'm going to introduce her in just a minute. Her name's Jennifer Grieco. Is a great instructor, really knowledgeable in the field and her progression with a criminal justice degree. She's going to talk about that with a very high GPA and a lot of other training certificates and certifications that have helped her in the industry. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Sounding like a 5-year-old, still fighting a cold. And I know my friends and family are watching this now too. Look, I'm drinking my juice, folks. I got my tea over there. I promise. I'm
Take your
trying to
vitamin C.
got my vitamin C, doing my push-ups, and trying to stay healthy. I was literally living on my couch for the past week, just fighting this super flu, but super stoked. I know I was bugging you all week, like Jennifer, are you ready? I don't care if I'm on my deathbed. We're doing this on Monday. So hello. And I figured we would just kind of start with a brief introduction. Can tell the folks a little bit about you and your background, and we'll kind of get into the questions as we go. And for folks who are new, who have not tuned in before, it's a live interactive session. So if you're interested in becoming a security guard, if you have questions, feel free, drop them down, and we will post them live today. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning.
You are now on the hot spot. All you.
Right where I don't like to be.
I was just joking about this a few minutes
Yeah.
ago. So tell the folks about you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And a little bit about your background.
First, I grew up, born and raised in New York City and Long Island area,
Hmm.
and went to school down there out in Long Island, North Shore and Glen Cove High School. And then for many years after I essentially met my husband, that took us upstate. He was a warden for New York City Department of Corrections, so his job stayed there. My job, I should say, took us upstate when I was working for the Department of Defense and now with the New York State Unified Court System.
And you come very highly recommended to us. I know that you're fairly new with us. I did a little research and digging before today. You've taught over a dozen classes, almost a thousand security officers already. But I know your training and your background, makes you a great instructor. Just tell the folks a little bit about, your schooling and your education and some of the things that you've done to kind of lead up to this point.
Okay. So in the early 2000s, I decided to go back to school for criminal justice and obtain my 2 year, my associates in criminal justice. The issues that I had ran into after getting my degree was that at a very young age, I had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So that sort of restricted me from either entering into the military or a policing field or a corrections field, right, as an officer, as a uniform staff, I should say. So to still stay in the field because I had that passion for criminal justice and just overall security, I had to take a different approach. So I decided to go back to school after receiving my 2 year for security management. So I went to Bellevue University and did classes online and obtained my bachelor's, and then decided to continue on and get my master's degree, which led me to instructing, applying to the state for my certifications, because you had to at least be law enforcement or hold a degree in mass
Mhm.
security management to be able to instruct the classes.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have a military background, so that's kind of
Mhm.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was like, listen, I just want to make money. I don't care what I'm doing. Let me just figure something out. Just being in
Right.
Brooklyn, it was expensive.
Mhm.
Had the security experience, had the military experience, and I was like, why not teach? There's always going
Right.
to be a need for security, and there's always going to be a need for classes. I went to John Jay College as well. I did very,
Mhm.
very well. I graduated with a GPA pretty close to yours. I see you got a 3.9. What happened with the minor? Was it math? That's what killed me. Math just knocked off a few points.
No, I had one instructor, and he was a great instructor, but he was just one of those instructors. No matter how hard you worked, he just would not give you that like like that 100. And sometimes I felt like I was maybe doing too much,
Yeah.
because I really strive for greatness, and I always put a lot of work. Into my projects and schooling, and not to say that other people didn't, but when we would have to present our work at the end of each semester, I felt like mine was at a much higher level as far as the amount of time and work that I put into it than other people. But it was disappointing. He just would not give me that 100. It was always like like a 95 or low 90, and it just no, it didn't matter. So yeah, it
I
kept me
I
from getting
always
that 4.0.
I was so upset, and it was my own fault. I've never been like a math person, and I was
Hmm.
like, listen, I just need to pass this. I'm going into the NYPD. You gotta help me. And he's like, I'm gonna let you do one retest, and you better pass this thing. And thankfully, I did, and kind of went on my way. So, folks, we're gonna get into some questions. If you have any that you'd like to ask the instructor Jennifer, put them down in the chat. We will bring them up as we go through the podcast today. So, I have a bunch of questions lined up, and we'll go through these one at a time. And these I feel are very important. And not a lot of other training schools do this kind of thing. We feel at Guardian it's important to kind of highlight what we do and why we are the best. We do a lot of online training. We do some things in person. We do security, fire safety, first aid, CPR. We do self defense. We do armed guard training. We do the CCW, and we're branching out to some other things as well because we want to help you folks in the industry. So, question one for Jennifer, folks, right here. This is very important. What are the common traits that make a great instructor?
I would have to say somebody who's very engaged in it. Not a lot of people wake up every day and love what they do. I love my job, not just in being an instructor, but my everyday work that I do for the court system. I enjoy being there. It's a very tough job, but the security aspect of the training has always been my passion. So I think that you have to just be engaged. You have to be very knowledgeable. You have to show your students, essentially, that are taking the class, that you really like what you do, right? You have to tell them that this is a very demanding job, right? It can be very stressful. There's high expectations in this field, but you can be great in this field, right? If you really love to do it, you can be great in it. You just have to make sure that it's something you enjoy doing. So I think if you show them that you love your job and what you do, right, it helps them essentially grow and be great as well.
Yeah, and when I first got into security, I really didn't know anything
Mhm.
about private security. I was always, the
Right.
military guy, and it was, always focused around military bases or contracts in that manner. But
Hmm.
folks, this industry is growing tremendously.
Right.
There's a lot of instructors out there, and I know I'll get this in the comments. Feel free to put it in there, folks. We all have that one instructor who just talks and talks and talks and talks, and it's really not engaging and it's not fun. They're
Mhm.
just kind of there going through the motions. I think, especially you, Jennifer, you bring a lot of real world applications as well as theory and scenarios that make people think, right? How do I control access to a construction site? Or how do I control access to a courthouse? Or how do I
Mhm.
control access to a high rise office building? Or how do I control access to a theme park? Because
Right.
security is very, very different, folks,
Right.
depending upon where you work. So when you get a good instructor, folks, they, can show you so many different aspects and so many different layers within the industry. And things are ever changing.
Hmm.
Um, One of the newest applications I've seen which I thought was really cool. They're using drone technology now for patrols, which I thought was super
Mhm.
cool. It's a great way to do verticals, check the perimeter, um, kind of get real time information of what's going on in the city. Um, I love it, because things are always changing. We're always learning. But why were you interested in becoming an instructor?
Um, well, for many years when I would go and take, when I first took my pre-assignment and then my annuals, it seemed as though a lot of the instructors were retired police officers, right? So their perspective was a lot different from what I was being taught in school. And
Mhm.
rightfully so, because that's
Sure.
where their background is, that's what they're trained in. But the liabilities were so different, right? They didn't seem to touch enough on being an actual security guard. For them, what they were teaching was from a policing perspective, and it didn't really line up with being a security guard versus being a police officer. So I just felt that there was a need to emphasize more on the security guard itself rather than, I'm not teaching you to be a police officer. Police officers don't have, I mean, I'm sorry, security guards don't go through that extensive training that police do. And we're subject to, more civil suits than police officers are because we don't
Sure.
have that union, that layer of government protection over us that they have.
It's funny now that you say this. I was thinking about my very first instructor when I did my pre-assignment
Mm-hmm.
like 25 years ago. He was a chief of detectives, really good instructor. I mean, he was
Mm-hmm.
really good at presenting information. He was a really good character too.
Right.
So he just had this great Brooklyn personality, which was engaging. So people listened to what they had to say, but it was kind of brought on the same exact manner. And I remember like my first job, he kind of had us going out there like a cop, check bags and get in front of people and stop people. When I became a supervisor and started teaching that to some of my guys and gals that worked for me, they were like, "Why are we doing this?
Right.
What's going on?"
Right.
And we kind of went more to the customer service concierge doorman approach, which was much better for that client. It was an insurance company, and that's kind of
Mhm.
what they wanted. They didn't want to feel like they were locked in a prison when they were coming to work, but there were still rules that had to be followed.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes you get a really good, instructor or a good chef. They got a good recipe, but may not be for that particular building or
Right.
particular client.
Right.
Um, they did help us. I would definitely say focus on the mental health and physical part of the job.
Mhm.
Just kind of being active, right? You're going to be out there. You got to walk. You got to patrol. You got to move around. You got to stay awake. You got to stay alert. Um, I know for my process, and this is kind of like in the next question, it was a fun process to become an instructor. I loved my class. Um, what was your process to become an instructor? It was a 40-hour.
Oh, are you there? You kind of froze a little bit.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a little excited and the internet froze. um, the process to become an instructor is the same for most people, and I think
Mhm.
everybody understands like it's a 40-hour IDC instructor development course. I
Mhm.
loved mine. It was in downtown Manhattan on Wall Street. Got a whole week to play hooky from work. A lot of role playing and scenarios, but they had us do so many different things that was just out of the box. Not your typical teacher training. What was your process like for you?
Initially, I didn't have to go through that course. They were able to waive it due to some of my training and my background and degree. So I didn't actually take that course. I just had to really apply to the state, and they approved it and sent me that certification. Some parts of me feel like maybe I should have taken it only because initially I did want to open up my own security guard school. And that process is very lengthy with working with the state. So it would have given me a better feel for what I was getting myself into trying to open up my own school.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of had the ability to cheat a little bit because I
Hmm.
kind of seen what people were doing wrong or
Right.
um, ways that I can improve, my skills. Because back then, literally, the only way that people taught a class, they would, put up one of those like flip charts. They didn't
Hmm.
even have whiteboard. That's, how old I am. It's crazy to think about now. But technology is always
Hmm.
changing. You still have to be the driver of that bus, to get information. And folks, if you're really looking for some quality training, check us out. We're approved. We do them online. GuardianGroupServices.com. The information is on the bar there. Um, if you're looking to get a security license or renew a security guard license, maybe you're looking to upgrade your skills and become an FLSD, we got you covered. If you're looking to get your concealed carry, you're looking to take a first aid course, we've got you covered. Now, throughout the years, a lot of different people have different expectations of what security guards should do. How has your experience at work and at school shaped your training and education to prepare you as an instructor?
I think it's helped me to. It's hard, right? When you're certified in something, or you're very knowledgeable in something, you sort of use that knowledge in your everyday work. Even though I don't work as a security guard in my day-to-day job, I would say my job has helped me to learn and to become a better instructor by learning to be more patient, right? To have better communication skills, de-escalation skills, because I deal with de-escalation all day, even though it's not in this, in the court system. I'm not working as a court officer or a security guard, but I need the same essential skills to do my job. So I think that they balance each other, right? So the security knowledge has helped me in my job with the courts, and my job with the courts has helped me in my security. So they balance each other out, and it's, as you said,
Sure.
security is ever evolving. So um, it's just helped me develop my skill set
Yeah, and I
more.
think a lot of security guards don't understand that they
Mhm.
might get called into court at some point, right?
Right.
Not the same way a police officer would, but
Right.
you'll
Hmm.
definitely get called in for an insurance claim, a slip, trip, and fall.
Yep.
Definitely going to look at your reports. Someone actually popped a question in there for you. Let me pull this one up. That's a good question. Ever arrest someone, Jennifer? They want to know if you've been putting hands on people and had to yoke someone up out of that courthouse.
No, I have never had to. Luckily, our court officers do that, right? That's their task. So I never have to put my hands on anyone or and use any type of force.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it right on the head before that question came up. It's always about it de-escalating a
Mm-hmm.
situation, right? If there's any, you're going to win 100 fights you
Right.
don't get into. Always try to find the way to
Mm-hmm.
de-escalate. And sometimes people don't want to go down that path,
Right.
but we've got to try. Um, Next question, and this is a good one. I've had a few over the years. I've been very lucky to have really good leaders in my career and positive
Mm-hmm.
influences. Um, Bruce Weiss is a great guy. He's been really, really good at understanding what this job is, and he's got a great saying. He's doing well, doing good, and that's what we try to do as instructors to be positive and help people along the way. For most security guards, they're looking to earn a living, provide for themselves and their family.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might be going to school. So, I think it's very important for instructors to always remember that we really are impacting people in a positive way. So, got to ask you the same question. Who's had the most positive influence on your career and why? I think I might know the answer from the
Mm-hmm.
interview we had when we first met you.
Probably. Yeah, I would have to definitely say in for this question, it would be my husband. Um, he always pushed me. He was very, very knowledgeable in this field. He worked for, New York City Correction for 30 years, worked his way up to a warden. Um, and he always was that driving force behind, me going back to school and wanting to better myself. Even though it wasn't a financial need, right? He made great money. He just always wanted me to be better. He knew that I took a back seat to help him evolve in his career and move up in the ranks, because someone had to be home taking care of the kids and managing our lifestyle at home. But he didn't want me to just sit at home. He wanted me to advance in the best way I could by going back to school, staying knowledgeable, getting certifications, which allowed me, since him passing away, to really just excel in this field and have my, I guess you could say, my own career path now.
Yeah, I remember. It's just funny to think about this. It wasn't that long ago. It
Mhm.
really wasn't. When we first interviewed you for the position, you
Mhm.
literally put a ton of work into the
Oh
interview
yeah.
and the slide deck. We were like, Jennifer, all we need is 5 minutes. for a training slide deck, and you had like 5 hours worth of material, but
Mm-hmm.
it shows. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like when you take a role like yours and with your
Mm-hmm.
personality, you want your students to succeed and you want to see them do well.
Mm-hmm.
There are some bad actors in this industry,
Oh yeah.
and New York State is not stupid. They have been shutting those schools down. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of paper mills. You go, they give you a certificate, and they let you go on your way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel that does a huge disservice to the industry and to the
Right.
individual. If they're on, post and they don't know how to just deal with some of the basics, it really can be life and death. I always get a little dramatic in the classes, but I try to pull things from the real world. You got to get a good instructor. You've
Mm-hmm.
just got to get a good instructor, folks, if you're going to work in this industry. Someone who's really going to take the time to present you information and really coach and help you
Mm-hmm.
along the way, like instructor Jennifer.
Right.
So thank you. So far, you're about to like 1,000 students. You're getting close to 1,000 students already with us.
Wow.
And, you know, we, we have to stay up to date as well as instructors. I'm always
Mm-hmm.
at, networking events and podcasts like this and some others that I'm part of, the FLSD Association, the FEMA groups.
Mm-hmm.
I try to go to the trade shows in the city. But how do you stay up to date with things going on in security world?
I would just say, we have now, right? The news is at our fingertips every second of the day with social media. So I'm
Hmm.
continuously looking at news articles, looking at blogs, researching, staying up to date with all our just everything happening, right? Incidents that take place
Yeah,
globally every single day. I don't think people seem to understand the global effect that, things happen in other countries, terrorist acts, and how it affects the United States and how we need to and be more prepared, essentially. So I just think continuous training, continuous reading, research, and just I always just say research, research, because you never know. We always say security is ever evolving, right? Trends change, and we just have to stay up to date on things.
yeah. It's actually funny. I've kind of had some ebbs and flows with this worldwide news.
Hmm.
Terrorism has always been a thing, and people are like, you don't hear about that as much now. Well, you kind of drowned it out by all of the things
Hmm.
politically now, left
Right,
or right, whatever side of the aisle you're on, it doesn't matter. Literally, you can pick up your device and you got live information happening
right.
all day, nonstop, and sometimes it's hard for people to take it and process. Um, in New York City, they used to have like it's like the Big Apple Watch.
Hmm.
Every time you had like shots fired, you get notification, some kind of like big protest or rally. NYPD Shield's like another really good resource to stay up to date. But
Hmm.
I feel terrorism was like the big thing years ago, but now civil unrest and preparation is kind of like the big focus in security.
Right.
Um, I know that you've done in person and online courses. What are your thoughts? In person versus online? What have you done more of? What do you like better?
The online is a little bit more nerve wracking, and I don't know why. You would think being in person would make you more nervous, but in person, I feel like you just sort of get a little bit more of a feel for the people that are there,
Mhm.
and I think that sometimes you have more control over the environment because the students are right in front of you versus online. It does get a little different. I'm glad that we have admins sort of in the background watching everybody as I'm instructing because it's very difficult when you can only see like four people at a time on your screen versus everyone
Sure.
who's in the class. So I feel like the in person is a little bit more of an intimate setting. It does make it easier than online, but the convenience of everything being online makes it so much better.
Yeah, we as a company had to pivot, during COVID, but we're able to kind of open this up more to so many more people, especially upstate, in Long Island, who may not be able to find
Mhm.
a school, or schools went out of business, or they weren't, that great. But support is key. In our training classes, folks online, when you do the class online, it is interactive. You have an
Mhm.
instructor, you have your other students, you have admins in the background, kind of watching and helping throughout the day. And talk about support, Jennifer. I got to tell you, one of our other instructors, he's in the background. Got to say hello. You haven't had the chance to meet this guy yet. He's a good guy. John Levine. John Levine's giving you two thumbs up. He said you're doing very good.
Thank
He's
you.
been with us for a while. Really, really good guy. John, good morning. Good to see you. Um, kind of depends on what you're teaching as well, right? Some
Right.
things have to be in person. If it's
Mm.
hands on, if you're teaching like a CPR class or a first aid class, you're controlling the bleeding, or you're doing compressions, or if you're teaching a concealed carry, you're teaching basic fundamentals. So some things, work well online, and some things work very well in person. Um, you've taught more in person classes at this point?
No, no, actually more with you guys online. When
Online.
I was doing
Okay.
in person, it was really more just on a per diem basis when they needed me to fill in for someone at a local college.
Yeah, and I noticed that depends on the location. In the
Hmm.
city, I mean, you can get everywhere by bus and train and even by walking. But if you're upstate, you have a snow day like we had this past weekend. No one's showing up to your class.
Right.
Sometimes you get two students, you got to cancel. So it's one of the convenient things about going online, in my opinion. Um, Always evolving, always
Hmm.
being the professional that we need to be. What would you consider undertaking? Maybe something that you haven't done yet that you'd like to in the future.
Um, I always want to gain more certifications. So I do want to move forward with my concealed carry. I was sort of in the process of doing that when my husband became very sick. So things took a back seat as far as me taking care of him and moving forward with being able to do the courses and the classes. So that's something that I really want to do. I want to do my concealed carry and get my armed guard license, and maybe become an armed guard instructor or a firearm instructor would be nice.
Well, Jennifer, if you're looking to take a CCW class, you can do so with Guardian Group Services in downtown Brooklyn. We do it every month, the first two Sundays of every month. I got to
Perfect.
say it, the boss is next to me. He says, if I don't plug it, you're out of here, McNamara. But your background, I know that you're capable of teaching many different things. I think you would be a good, armed guard instructor as well.
Mhm.
I know we've talked about that process as well. And it's a process. You got to
Right.
do the fingerprints, you got to do the
Hmm.
background check, you got to wait. But it's a great skill, and it's a great license to have in this industry. Um, I think more and more people today, now more than ever, they kind of fall into like three branches in security. Either they become a security manager,
Hmm.
or they might veer off to fire safety. They become like an FLSD in their building, or they'll become an armed guard. So I always say like those are the three paths. Three. It's that Brooklyn accent in me plus the cold. The three paths one would fall into in the security industry. Um, and you should always be thinking, folks, of how do you progress? How do you
Hmm.
earn more, and how do you take on more responsibility in this industry? Because it's a great career. I know so
Right.
many people that have done
Hmm.
20, 25, 30 years in this industry, and they love what they do. Because they land with the right employer. Um, and some of them kind of go into they do this career, and then they go into like emergency management or law enforcement or corrections as
Hmm.
well. So for some, this might be a stepping stone
Right.
to something else. So hopefully, Jennifer, we'll see you at our next concealed carry class. We'll see. Um, Now, your resume, I have it in front of me still. It's like 4 pages. Good stuff. And you have a few things here that are really, really helpful for security guards. I'll talk a little bit about them, but I'll let you kind of go into the detail. But I'd like for you to talk about the resources you would recommend to other students after class. I love these. These are great. The FEMA self study, I can't push these things enough. And I tell people, if you got free time, man, you could rack up 100 of these things and
Hmm.
build up some college credits.
Yeah.
What would you recommend?
I would say that people need to. It's always helpful to take courses that help them develop better communication skills, right? Because that's a very large part of security is communication. Always just self development, right? You always
Mhm.
want to grow. I would say take the conceal carry, take your OC courses, your fire safety
Yeah.
courses, CPR, anything that's going to certify you and make you look better, right? When you present yourself to a company, like, with your resume or my resume there, you always want to highlight how great you are, right? And how knowledgeable you are, and the experience and education that you have. And certifications are always a great way to do so.
I'm going to just kind of rattle some of these off because they're on your resume, they're on mine. I think they're on every instructor's list.
Hmm.
Fundamentals of emergency management,
Hmm.
great course. Um, ICS 100 and 700, ICS and NIMS.
Mhm.
No matter what you do in security, folks, those two things will lay the foundation for you to really make a career. And they're not hard courses. They're incident command structure and the national incident
Mhm.
management system. Two great things you can knock out online in probably a day. You could do both of them in the same day. They're not that difficult. And you also took, which I took as well, radiological emergency management.
Mhm.
When I was in the military, that stuff scared the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Anything with like sea burn,
Mhm.
radioactive, I didn't want to become like the swamp thing. If it's funky, go the other way.
Mhm.
Um, what others would you recommend? I mean, they have so many now on the FEMA website.
Right. I would definitely say because of today's day and age at the active shooter courses, and a lot of people don't realize that many of these courses are free. You don't even have to pay for them. So that's a great way to build up your certificates with free courses. I essentially stumbled upon them because I needed some electives in order to graduate, and so I just went onto the FEMA site because they were recommending those. My professor was recommending those, and went on there and just signed up for them and took what I needed to graduate. But there's some really good resources on FEMA, specifically, because FEMA is all about emergency management and response. So they're geared towards the security field. So it's good knowledge.
Yeah, one of our students actually in the chat just put up the same thing as we were talking
Mhm.
about them. The FEMA IS study, FEMA independent study. I checked the website right now on my phone. There's literally over 1,000 new courses that are on there.
Mhm.
Um, Folks, you can spend all day on that website. And the great thing about those, what I found is most of them will give you some college credits. Some of them
Mhm.
half a point, some of them a full point. So, if you're in school and you're trying to get out quicker, could be a great way to do that. I did them when I was going to John Jay. I was working full time, going to John Jay, and then I was doing some of those things as well. Great resources, folks. Definitely check them out. So, Jennifer, we have made it through all of the questions. We are
Oh,
going
wow.
to get to the last one right now, which I think is a really, really important one. What has been your most memorable class so far and why? I don't think you've had to throw anybody out or remove anybody, so you've had some good classes.
Yeah, I'd have to say all of them. I haven't had anyone give me a hard time in any of my classes. I feel like the students have been very engaging. They've been very, mature and not making me call them out to, take their hoods off or get back on camera. Um, so I can't say that I've had any one class that was better than the other. They've gotten a little bit better as far as me not being as nervous anymore teaching the courses, but overall, I think they've all been great.
Yeah, I think you just kind of have to figure out like your Zoom setup, how
Hmm.
you like your camera to like the gallery view and kind of set everything up.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you are interested in a class, if you're interested in taking a class with Jennifer, you can register on our website right there. Just take your fancy little phone out, scan that QR code at our website, guardiangroupservices.com. If you're looking for security, fire safety, first aid, we've got you covered. Jennifer, I can't believe we're out of time.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
wrap, as my boss would say. He would tell me, get back to work. Any parting words?
I would just say that for anyone getting into this field or really any field in general, always try to grow, always try to move up and advance in your career. I always take the perspective of if I'm not growing myself professionally, then what good am I to any company, right? You always want to come in, you want to move up, you want to help the company be better and grow. So the only way to do that is to grow yourself, right? And you don't want to come into a company and stay at the bottom level forever. You always want to advance, and it helps you overall professionally and personally, and it helps the company grow. So just always have that mindset.
Absolutely agree with you 100%. Jennifer, thank you so much for your time. I know it's a holiday today. Everybody's kind
Hmm.
of got the day off except for
Hmm.
me and Bruce. So we're all working today. Just want to thank you for your time. Like I said, I was fighting through a cold. I didn't care what was going on. I was definitely going to be here today. This is important to us. And, some of the students, they love these. We share them on our YouTube page. And, they always like to know about the instructor. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Now you got one of these under your belt. You can do the
Yes.
trivia with all of our instructors and beat them up as well.
Perfect.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.